and Maurice Starr were very instrumental in creating what has now become the Boston music sound and music scene. Do you remember the very first time you saw Maurice?
Maurice, you had to hear first. I heard Maurice the first time. I didn't see him. I heard him. I was sitting in Talbot Avenue in Dorchester, Carmen Square area, and I just set up. No, I just come back. I was back and forth between L.A., where I started out there. And I was looking to get into the scene, into the music scene myself. I had done work for RCA Records, had managed, road managed for the main ingredient, Cuba Gooding, until he messed up out there in L.A. And they kicked us all out. They kicked us all off of RCA, him, me, my group that I had signed there. And, you know, it was nice. I liked living out there. And I said, well, let me go back to Boston and see what's happening there. '77, I came back, ran into this guy, Roscoe Gorham, who managed the Energetics. And went to a club and saw him. And I said, wow, man, the guys are bad. You know, and I talked to Roscoe. I said, Roscoe, you got any tapes on him? So I went back to L.A. and I sold the thing for $8,000. You know, and Roscoe paid me 10%. This was the Energetics group that, young group that I had known before I'd even left Boston, sometime around there.
So when did you see Maurice in the process of?
Gotta hear him. Gotta lead up to it. Gotta lead up to this. So Maurice was, he was there as the Johnson Brothers, from what I heard, but I never saw the Johnson Brothers. I never saw them perform. I never knew about them. I didn't know anything about them, so I came in like a virgin into Boston. When I came back to Boston after doing the deal with Roscoe, and then I came back a year later, around the beginning of '79, I had some money, a little bit of money. And I got this place on Talbot Avenue upstairs and downstairs and started redecorating, put a desk in and said, okay, I'm gonna get into the business. One day I came in and I turned on WILD. And something said, about time I funk you, baby. I said, man. And the guy said, this is Maurice Starr, Boston's own. I said, wow, a cat like me. I couldn't believe it.
Right.
From Boston, somebody I could relate to. And I called up the radio station and talked to the cat. I said, who's that? He said, this is guy, Maurice Starr from the Johnson Brothers. And then it clicked, because when I was at RCA, there was a guy there named Jerome Gasper, who always used to be talking about this band from Boston called the Johnson Brothers that he wanted to sign to RCA. He said, sometimes they be doing country, sometimes they do rock, sometimes they be doing this. He said, never get a handle on them. So I said, wow. So let me tell you, because it was the most important meeting of my life. It was the most important meeting of my entire life. There was an ad on the radio station. It said, Maurice Starr got his hit record out on his own record company. Boston International Record put out the record himself. And like I said, I've been trying to put out records for about a year and a half, 2 years myself, and trying to get money to do this. So I was thinking the same thing. So when I heard that, I said, wow, Cat put out his own record. So I had an ad. He's going to be at Burns Lounge. It was February 1979. And I went down there. There was snow on the ground. And Maurice Starr was inside of Burns Lounge by himself. He was in a little feud with his brothers, setting up his own equipment. He had on his black outfit, black suit, black shoes, hair in this little, he had his hair done some kind of way. He was always messing with his hair all the time. I don't know what he was doing at that time, but it was cool. I said, wow. I went up to him and said, hey, my name is Tony Rose. I'm out of LA. I used to work for RCA Records, main ingredient. I ran myself down in like 2 seconds, which only I can do probably. And he said, hey, man. Shook hands, we sat down. I said, man, I love your record. This is verbatim. I love your record. I said, I love your record. I said, that's you? He said, it's me. I didn't know nothing about him. I didn't know where he came from, where he'd been, who his family was. I didn't know nothing about him. But I sat there, he set up his stuff. I even tried to help him. You know, with the speakers, plug in here, plug in there. We jived around. Nobody came. I think he told me at that time he was waiting for Michael to come, his brother. I didn't even know who Michael was, to play drums or something like that. Finally, nobody showed up. Maurice Starr is in there by himself on Burns Lounge stage on Washington Street in Dorchester, man. The cat got up on his keyboard, some organ type of thing that he carried around with him, and knocked off all the hits. Al Green, Tyrone, somebody who was ever that was at the time. He knocked off all the hits, all the Southern records, man. He knew everything. Maurice knew everything. As I came later to know, Maurice could listen to the radio one time and play it right verbatim. You can't do that. I can't do that. Very few people can do that.
It's a genius.
It's a genius. He could do that. He could knock it off. Maurice could write a hit anytime he wanted to, just by listening to a record and doing that. But I'm jumping way ahead.
I want you to tell me about what he looked like, though, when you saw him that other time on stage. The silver boots,
Well, this is afterwards. This is after we all got cool. This is
Okay.
after Vern's Lounge, when we started hanging out. And he started coming by my place and rapping and talking about music. Then we call each other up and gossip. We get our billboards on Monday morning and read Billboard and gossip about that and what we were going to do. And then I started working with him. I brought him to you. That's how we met. I met you from that. And so we started running around doing shows.
It was a very interesting time because in the piece that you wrote about all of this, you talk about how, I mean, for everybody then, it was like everybody was living large.
Living high and large,
You know,
living real large.
Good Mercedes and
I bought a
you could
Mercedes
afford.
no, I bought one for $5,000. The first cat to buy a Mercedes. $5,000. It was green with a bubble top. Man, I used to get stopped at the lights by all the girls, man. They'd be wanting to get in the car, you know. And Maurice would be driving. Yeah, he would drive around with me in the back. And this is, but before this, let me tell you, just because it was a between time when we met, we both didn't have cars. So Maurice had a girlfriend who had little Maurice Starr. And we used to go by and pick up her car. The deal was we had to take Maurice with us when we'd go out, be promoting the records and selling Maurice. We used to have the baby in the back. This is something nobody knows. It would be wild. But this is leading up to that point. Up to that point there.
When, I want you to describe, though, because we have a cover, an album cover of Maurice, and I think it's the, it's not, I don't know if it's About Time I Funk You, but it's the one with the Silverado.
That's Flamin' Starr, the first
Flaming
album. Flamin' Starr
You
album.
actually saw Maurice in this little getup.
Yep. He had it made by, there was a guy who was a choreographer and a designer there. God, I want to say his name, but I can't remember it right now. I swear to God. But he did the choreography later on for New Edition and New Kids on the Block for Maurice. But he was a designer, so he made up the uniform for Maurice. Maurice specially asked him, gave him the directions on what he wanted. It had a cape on the back of it. We used to do gigs, and after Prince Charles's show, then we go to Maurice's show. I think the funniest time is that I saw us for real. Is when we were all piled in my Mercedes, Prince Charles, Dr. Funk and Chain, Maurice Starr, Sergeant Funk, and me. And I think we were real insane. But it was like Minneapolis became when we were just starting out around the same time. We went to Yuji's at 4 o'clock in the morning. Remember Yuji's, the steak place, open across from Eggleston Station? And I saw us get out of the car. Maurice's cape was snow on the ground, was trudging through the snow in his boots. And Sergeant Funk and Prince Charles with his uniform on, we looked like clowns, but it was so real. Boston had never seen nothing like us.
That leads
We
to
had never
another
seen
question.
it like
You know,
that.
and there's so many things, I'm going to actually get out my little list here, but you talked about the funniest time, the funniest moment that you'd ever seen with him. What do you think were some of the other smartest moments that you've seen with Maurice Starr?
There's never been one time. Maurice and I were competitors, heavy competitors. Without let me say this, without Maurice Starr, I would not be sitting here, and my career might not have gotten off on the ground. When I came into Boston after meeting him, I met Charles through him when we put the band together going to Maurice. I was like Maurice's manager at that time, doing the promotion, setting up the dates, TV shows, helping with the record, getting the record out, getting his sound out. I loved Maurice. He was like God. I knew how talented he was. I was talented, but I knew he was king. The key was, so it was like, okay, with the two of us together, we can do almost anything.